Hey, good evening, Turner. Why don't you stand up? Children of the promise, the beloved of the Lord, one with everlasting kindness, but with sacrificial blood, bringing reconciliation to a world that longs to know the affections of a Father who will never let them go. Rejoice, come and lift your hands and praise your voice. He's worthy of all praise. Rejoice, sing the mercies of your King, and with trembling rejoice. All our sickness, all our sorrow, Jesus carried up the hill. He has walked this path before us, and he's walking with us still. Turning tragedy to triumph, turning agony to praise. There is blessing in the battle, so take heart, stand amazed. Rejoice, when you cry to hear me, hears your voice. Oh, he's gonna wipe away your tears. Rejoice, in the midst of suffering, come and lift your hands and praise your voice. He is worthy of all praise. Rejoice, mercies of your King, and with trembling rejoice. How you doing, Terranova? Doing all right. Beautiful Palm Sunday weekend. I don't think this makes that Palm Saturday. I'm not sure or Palm Sunday Eve maybe. But this is a great, great, great weekend for us to begin to reflect. Really, I think as any weekend is a great weekend to reflect on the goodness of God and how his love changes us and makes us better and makes us more into the image that he always knew that we could be. And his love keeps lifting us higher. So let's try this. Out of the shadow I was living in. And I'm so happy I found you. You make everything bright. I know your goodness, I know your mercy will never end. Your love is lifting me higher. Your love is lifting me higher. Your my way. Your love reminds me you'll never leave me all alone. Lord, we will never be parted. You will never walk away. I know your goodness, I know your mercy will lead me home. Your love is lifting me higher. Your love is lifting me higher. Your love is lifting me higher again. Your love is lifting me higher. Your love is lifting me higher. Your love is lifting me higher again. And your love, oh, it shines from the heart of heaven. Oh, your love is always gonna win. Oh, your love, it's breaking the power of darkness. Love is gonna do it again. Your love, come on, it's lifting me higher. Love is lifting me higher. Your love is lifting me higher again. Your love is lifting me higher. Your love is lifting me higher. Your love is lifting me higher again. Your love is lifting me higher. Your love is lifting me higher. Your love is lifting me higher again. And your love, oh, it shines from the heart of heaven. Oh, your love is always gonna win. And your love, oh, it's breaking the power of darkness. Love is gonna do it again. Love is gonna do it again. Love is gonna do it again.
Hey, welcome to Terminal. I'm loving that song that Christian and the band wrote. Isn't that a great one? It's become one of my quick favorites. Hey, welcome to Terra Nova. Great to see you guys. My name is John, and this is my friend Scott. Say what's up, Scott.
Hey, everybody. Good to see you guys.
Really great crowd participation happening there. I love that. That was really good. Hey, we were talking about something earlier, and maybe you can settle a debate for us. So here's the question for you. Like, do you have a favorite breakfast cereal maybe now or as a kid? Like, where do you go?
Yeah.
What's your go-to breakfast cereal? So turn around, meet somebody, maybe somebody you haven't said hi to before, introduce yourself and tell them what your go-to breakfast cereal just might be. Go for it.
Hey, if you're watching online, thanks for tuning in this weekend. Again, I'm Scott. This is John. And then the question goes out there, the best breakfast cereal. So, John, what would it be for you?
So how many of you don't really eat breakfast cereal that much anymore? Yeah. How many of you ate a lot as a kid, though? So I had to go back to Captain Crunch. That's where I'm going with
Captain
that.
Crunch.
Yes?
Very good.
Okay.
Very good. So I still eat a lot of cereal. This morning I had Honey Bunches of Oats, okay? So that's where I go. I do Special K. Who else does Special K, right? So, there's a lot of us.
There's a whole row.
All
there
the
we
people
go.
that said hello, Scott, earlier. Yeah, very good. So I want to welcome you guys to Terra Nova, whether you are or are not cereal eaters. We're glad to have you with us this weekend. It's going to be a great weekend. We're going to celebrate communion a little bit later on, and so we got that to look forward to, a few more songs, and also some time where we're going to be wrapping up our series we've been in called You're Not Far. But right now, we just want to welcome you. If you happen to be a guest and it's one of your first times with us, it means so much to us to have you with us. And we would just love to invite everybody to take this program that you got handed in on the way, and you can grab it, you can open it up, and you'll see a number of different things that are coming up. But the thing that we would love to have you do and point you towards is the back flap of this program looks just like this. It's called our Connect card. Everybody fills it out every week, and so you can find it, fold it over, you can tear it off. If you've got your Terra Nova app out, you can fill out the Connect card on that. But again, the Connect card is just something everybody does every week. And so whether you've got something that's going on in your life, you go, hey, this is news, and I want to share this with somebody, maybe something that's been hard or something we're celebrating that you would like us to know, a prayer request to join you in praying for, any of those things, questions, you can write those all on there. But we would love to get a Connect card from everybody this weekend.
So it's Holy Week.
It is,
Palm Sunday weekend. Scott said we're celebrating communion a little bit later, and this is the beginning of one of the most important weeks in the calendar of the life of followers of Jesus as we lead towards Easter, which is just 1 weekend away. And one of the kind of key events that really starts off Holy Week past Palm Sunday, something called Maundy Thursday. It's Thursday night. It's the night we celebrate when Jesus and his disciples had their final meal, and Jesus washed their feet as this act of ultimate service. And we just think it's a great way for us to start off our Easter celebration on that Thursday evening by serving. And so we always do this thing, the Thursday before Easter, where we call it Super Serve Thursday. And you're all invited to come out here. We get a bunch of things ready for the weekend, and it's just kind of this all play. We buy pizza. We don't take our shoes off and watch each other's feet. But
Traditionally,
I don't know if you were to wash Scott's feet, maybe. That would be awkward. I don't know.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. And so how you can get and play with that is there's this flyer on the back of the program, or on the back of this baptisms this weekend too, by the way, tomorrow. And there's just a way to sign up to be a part of the Easter team, including that Thursday thing. But then there are other ways to jump into play too with our Supernova kids and guest services, our greeters, our reset teams. We even have a rollout in the parking lot to greet people as they're coming in. So lots of ways to serve, and you can grab that and start filling it out. But that's how it kicks off on Thursday, and then comes...
And then there's Good Friday. So on Good Friday, we get to take the time just to really reflect on, to internalize what Jesus did on that Good Friday and what he did on the cross for us. And so what we do at Terra Nova is between the hours of 12 and 2 o'clock, we have a Good Friday experience that happens here right in this room. It's a 30-minute experience, and so you can come every half hour starting at 12 o'clock all the way until 2, and we have a 30-minute kind of video-based reflective experience where we get to not only just kind of rush into Easter, we don't want to do that without remembering exactly the weight of what's going on and what Jesus did for us as individuals and what he did for the church. And so we get to have that on Friday. We want to invite you to come out to that.
I think communion's a part of that too.
Communion's a part of that, so it's another thing.
It's PG-13, so it's not really a great bring your 3-year-old kind of experience. It's very sobering and moving. So
another time just to come and to reflect on what's going on, and that's Good Friday. And then we get into
Saturday. So we're kicking off Saturday with?
And Saturday starts with the Easter egg hunt. So we've got services, but it all begins with the egg hunt. The egg hunt is happening on Saturday at 2:30. And this is going to be a good egg hunt, okay? And so we've talked about the way we've done egg hunts before. They're a lot of fun in and of themselves. I did a practice egg hunt in my house this afternoon. It went well, but this egg hunt's going to be better. And beyond the egg hunting that I will be doing, we're going to have face painting, balloon animals, all that. We've mentioned we've got some really good prizes we're going to raffle out.
I heard Nintendo
Switch. So that's a thing, and if you're a parent, that's actually a legit prize.
That's legit.
And we're going to be doing
Little
that.
Tyke Spike.
This is going to be perfect for anybody that's got younger kids, and so kind of preschool age, right around there, elementary. If you have younger kids, bring them out to it. If you've got grandkids or neighbors with kids, bring them out to it. It will be great. And so that's at 2:30, and then it rolls into...
Right into our first Easter service. And so actually, if you've got little kids and you want to invite people to have little kids, it's a great one to come to because they can just stay right through the 3:30 service, which will have kids classes all the way through 6th grade at that service. And then 5 p.m. Here on Saturday night, Sunday at 9:30 and 11. And we just think this is not only an amazing opportunity for us to remember who we are and how we as the Jesus movement got started, but to bring more people into it with us, to just bring alongside of us friends and family members and next door neighbors and coworkers. And so you can begin thinking and praying about who you can invite. We've got these cards out there on a table for the egg hunt invites, but also just to pass on an invitation like this to a friend or a loved one. And you'll hear a little bit more about that later on. So it's going to be a great week, and we're really excited for it. But we're also really excited that you're here right now on this Palm Sunday weekend, celebrating communion in a little bit. But we're wrapping up this series that we've been in called You're Not Far. This is part 7. And so let's jump into part 7 of You're Not Far.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's great to be with everybody, whether you're here in person or watching online. And, I got to tell you, I really value each and every one of you joining us here as Terra Nova as we go through the scriptures because, there's a challenge in what we're doing. We're trying to take some things that happened in the human experience like, 2,000 plus years ago and making them relevant and practical for our lives today. And if you think about it, that's really challenging. There might be some people that are in your life that might think you're a little crazy for even trying to do that. Because let's face it, civilization has changed. I want you to think a little bit about how civilization has developed. And I'll take you back to your cultural anthropology class in junior college. Some of you were there. And that you may have recalled that your cultural anthropology teachers told you that there were like 5 stages of civilization of the human experience. And here they are. They're the Stone Age, and there's the Bronze Age, and there's the Agrarian Age, and the Industrial Age, and then the Information Age. And you probably know a little bit of breakdown on that. And the differences in life, from the Stone Age all the way to our current age. And, how do we even piece some of those things together here for us today? So you probably know, like the Stone Age was, like where it all began. And what kept people busy in the Stone Age was hunting and gathering, and that was it, right? It wasn't like the Flintstones, it was very kind of a limited sort of experience, and that gave way to the Bronze Age, and the Bronze Age wasn't all about laying out and getting a tan. That wasn't what it was. Instead, what kept people busy during the Bronze Age was learning how to work with metals and fabricating metals into things like tools and weapons. And that advanced civilizations, right? And we saw that. And then there's this next age, the Agrarian Age. And this is where what kept people busy, because 99% of the people in the world at that time were farmers, is what kept them busy was plowing and sowing seed and watering the ground and reaping crops. I mean, that was the thing, that happened. And you probably figured out by now is that the Bronze Age and the Agrarian Age were kind of the 2 ages, you can straddle them, of which most of what we read about in the Bible, that was the background, that was the setting, or what was going on with a biblical record. And then we moved to the Industrial Age, right around the 19th century. Is that the Industrial Age is where, how people kept busy? They kept busy by manufacturing things, making stuff, okay? Manufacturing everything from automobiles to toasters. We do it all, right? Production line, replaceable parts, all of that. The Industrial Age, pollution, that became a thing too, as well as we were, cranking through our factories and stuff. And so we were kind of moving along in the Industrial Age, and then all of a sudden, within many of our lifetimes, what gave birth now is the Information Age, which is the current age that we're in. It's obviously a very different age, and it's the age where what keeps people busy now is being in front of their screens, right? I mean, that's what we do, right? We're in front of our screens, and have you noticed that it can be really hard then to take something that happened in a very different age and apply it to our current age and to make it replicable and applicable in the Information Age, where everyone is on their screens and frankly a little preoccupied checking their Instagram and Facebook and Twitter feeds, right? So this other information age invention or distinction or marking, and it's social media, okay? Social media, this thing called social media. And I don't know if you're like me in that you have a love-hate relationship with social media. You love it and you hate it. Okay, so for me, like, first of all, I'll tell you the love part. I love social media, and it's actually really fun to keep up with people and kind of know what they're doing, right? What they're up to. And it's also great for remembering their birthdays. You know their birthday, you can do your birthday thing, and that, for some of you, that's like a daily routine, checking in, doing the birthday thing, and so that's fine. And then you can have a platform, can't you, to broadcast whatever it is that you want to say to anybody, anywhere in the world. Pretty cool. So that's the love part. The hate part? Well, the hate part is social media sometimes gets a little weird, doesn't it? I mean, I have a Facebook thing going, and I'm not on it all that much, but here's what I've noticed about Facebook is that I have all these friends on Facebook that I hardly even know who they are. It's like, friends? Yeah, those are my friends. If I were to see some of these people in the supermarket, I wouldn't even bother to go over and tap them on the shoulder and say hi to them, but they're my friends. They're on the list. That's a little strange, right? Here's what else is a little weird. It's a little weird that through social media is that I can now have relationships with inanimate objects. Did you know that? So you were talking a little bit about that bowl of cereal that you like to eat either presently or back in the day. And so for me, it was Cheerios. And still, I like to sneak in a bowl of Cheerios. And so, the other morning, I was having some Cheerios and, I was reading the box, okay? So how many of you have had the experience where it's the full cereal experience, right? You eat the cereal while you read the box. Go ahead and raise your hand. There's something that's on the box there. I don't know, man. So that's just a thing, right? And so I'm reading the box, the Cheerios box, and there it is on my Cheerios box. It says, Cheerios, follow us on Twitter, become a fan on Facebook. With Cheerios. Wondering, so I wonder what Cheerios is tweeting about today, right? Chilling at Yellow Box, waiting for my friend at Milk to stop by. I mean, it makes no sense, right? But here's what does make sense, is how we use social media to make ourselves look good, right? And who doesn't like looking good? I mean, it's what we do. We use social media to post our highlight reels of all the wonderful things that are going on in our lives, our accomplishments, our promotions, our graduations, our amazing plates of food, our exotic vacations, our nights out on the town, our kids' victories out on the soccer pitch. Because see, here's what we want in our present age. Is that we want to appear like we have it all together, don't we? And social media is this great tool that we have learned how to leverage. Woo, do we look good, like we have it all together. But let me ask you this. What would it look like if you intentionally went public with your biggest failure, with the most shameful thing that you've ever done, and you decided to go to great lengths to make sure everybody knew about it? And you're saying, Lyle, who in the world would do that kind of thing? Well, a guy named Peter, he did. It's time for us to close out our series, You're Not Far, where we've entered into a story that frankly should have died during Nero's Rome, but it didn't. And it was a story that was told by a guy named Peter. Sometimes we refer to him as Simon Peter or St. Peter, the Apostle Peter. Maybe you've heard of him. He was there and communicated his story to a guy named Mark. Sometimes we call him John Mark. And it comes to us as the Gospel of Mark. It's the good news of Mark. And so here's the good news from the lips of Jesus. In Mark chapter 1, verse 15, Jesus says, "The time has come. The kingdom of God has come near. Repent and believe the good news." Now, what Jesus said, we're describing this way. We're describing this way. The kingdom of God is near. It's a kingdom that changes everything for the better, and everyone is invited to belong. And that was very good news to Jesus' original hearers, to the people that were in the nation of Israel back in those days. Because you see, back in those days, if you were a Jewish person, is that you probably believed that God seemed very far away. At least it felt like that, because you knew that it had been 400 years before God actually, since the last time that God actually said anything through his prophets, where somebody would rock up and say, hey, here's what God says. 400 years of silence from the time that Malachi spoke his prophecy until now. That's a long, long time. It seemed like God was far. If you were a Jewish person, it might seem like that there wasn't really anything going on with your life that was better, because you lived in the Roman Empire. And the experience of being in the Roman Empire was all about this thing where things are not better, man, they're just worse, because this was an oppressive place to live. And as for belonging, well, instead of being bathed by God's love and power and grace that is available for his kingdom, is that at that time is that sort of experience would have only have seen to be available to only a very few, not many. And so into this world, Jesus comes with this offer, and all that we need to do is repent, okay? He says, you got to repent, which we've discovered means have a change of mind that results in a change of behavior, and believe, and that's it. So previously on You're Not Far, last time we were together with part 6, is that we're in the story where Jesus is headed to Jerusalem for the Passover feast. And in Mark chapter 10, verse 32 is recorded this way. It says, they were on their way up to Jerusalem with Jesus leading the way. And the disciples were astonished, while those who followed him were afraid. It's a great way of Mark describing through Peter's words that we were all freaked out by this whole thing. Now, why were they so freaked out? Well, they probably were. His followers, they must have sensed that because of Jesus' teaching and his miracles and the proclamation that he was the Messiah, well, they were figuring that there was going to be some kind of showdown with those in power, a clash of kingdoms, if you will, as that they moved into Jerusalem. And so this is the way they went. Here's a map here of Israel at that time, and that they went from the home base that Jesus' disciples established in Capernaum on the Sea of Galilee, and that they moved south on a road paralleling the Jordan River that goes down, you can see here, down to the Salt Sea, which we actually know of now as the Dead Sea. You hang a right at Jericho, and then you go west up through a low mountain pass into the city of Jerusalem. Now, some of you have actually been there, and you've taken that journey. In fact, in 2019, there were 30 of us from Terra Nova that went to the land of the Bible, and we took this journey by bus. Okay, we didn't walk it, but by bus, it took us an hour and a half to get there. All right, just so that you know the distances, and so you can imagine, how much time it took for Jesus and his disciples to make that journey. I mean, it had to be at least a couple of days, right? And it's all still there. It's like the Sea of Galilee, the Jordan River, Jericho on the west bank, the city of Jerusalem is all still there. And I got some news, is that we've got a group of 20 of us from Terra Nova that are headed there in October. And Dana, my wife, and I were leading the trip. And just the way that we do trips is that we always got room for a couple extra people. So if you have an interest in going with us to Israel in October, all you need to do is take that Connect card that John and Scott talked to you about, just write Israel trip on it, and we'll give you some information so that you can actually see with your own eyes these places that we've been talking about through our series. Now when Jesus gets there, when they get to Jerusalem, the events to follow form what John and Scott had mentioned is what we call Passion Week or Holy Week. And last week, we touched down on some of the core moments of that week, a chapter at a time through the book of Mark. And so first of all, we look at chapter 11, and then we have the story of Palm Sunday, which is, of course, this weekend. We've talked about that. In chapter 12, we have Jesus being tested with a tricky question. The question is, hey, should we pay taxes to Caesar or not? And his answer just astounded people. In the next chapter, chapter 13, we have a prediction that he makes about the temple, that the temple was going to be destroyed. It was going to be destroyed. And in fact, no stone was going to be on top of another when it all was done. And then in chapter 14 is that we have the Last Supper, a Passover meal that Jesus and his disciples shared in a house in Jerusalem, in an upper room. And John had mentioned last week that it's likely that house that they were in was actually a house that John Mark's family owned. And it was where Jesus took the very familiar elements of the Passover meal and reinterpreted them in a very unfamiliar way. Now all of this might be leading you to a question that maybe you've been thinking about for a while. And the question is this, why is what's in the Bible in the Bible? Have you ever wondered that? Why is what's in the Bible in the Bible? And let's specifically apply it to Mark's gospel. I mean, why would the details be important here, the details that he's included, especially to the followers of Jesus for the first, 100 years or so in the church? Well, in order to answer that question, I think it's necessary to tell you how we got this idea that this book, the book of Mark, is really Peter's story that Mark wrote down. I mean, you might have been looking since we told you that, and you come to find out that nowhere in the New Testament and the rest of the New Testament is this ever mentioned. And so where did we get this idea that it was Peter's gospel and Mark wrote it down? Well, the answer to this is that we got this from early historical records, specifically from some historians that lived very close to that time. And oftentimes, biblical scholars refer to these historians as the early church fathers. The early church fathers, and the prominent ones all mention that this takes place. Their names are Irenaeus and Clement of Alexandria and Eusebius. And Eusebius actually quoted this guy. Here's this guy. His name is Papias. He was the bishop of Hierapolis. Hierapolis is in modern-day Turkey. Good-looking man. I guess this is his yearbook photo. I don't know. I'm not sure where they get this stuff. But Eusebius in his history mentions Hierapolis, and Hierapolis informs us about the connection that Mark and Peter have. And so here's what Papias says in the year 140 AD. He says this. He says, Mark, who became Peter's interpreter, very important, wrote accurately, though not in order, all that he remembered of the things said or done by the Lord. Okay, so let's just stop there. Okay, you see the connection, but here's something that you also see. What's this not in order thing? Like, what is that all about, and does that concern you? Well, understand, as the biblical scholars take a look at the book of Mark and the other three gospels and believe that all four accounts of Jesus' life are not necessarily chronological in their nature, but the biblical authors may have thought that wise and valuable for them to categorize some of the things that Jesus did, some of his teachings, or some of his miracles, just to allow the story to flow better. Of course, we always have the start and we always have the end, but there's some of the events in between that might have not been in exact historical chronological order. I bet you knew that. But let's go ahead and now let's look at what he says next. He says, so Mark made no mistake in thus recording some things just as he remembered them. For he was careful of this one thing, to omit none of the things he had heard and to make no untrue statements therein. Here's what Papias says. Papias says, hey guys, it's all there. Mark had to remember the things that Peter told him because it's likely that his gospel was actually put into writing after Peter had died. And so Papias is telling us, okay, because of that, is that nothing's left out. Everything then is significant. Every detail has a purpose. And you can see that. See, for the early church, it would be important for them to know Palm Sunday, as we talked about, and the things that happened there, and it would be important for them to know how Palm Sunday fulfilled the Old Testament prophecies of the Messiah's entrance in Jerusalem. Jesus' answer to the tricky question, or another of that, would have given them the framework of how to relate to the governing authorities and also how to relate to God. And then there's this temple prediction that Jesus made, where, the temple gets destroyed, no stone on top of each other. The written record of Mark's gospel was probably completed around 60 AD. About 10 years later, the temple was destroyed by the Romans. And so they, for later on, as readers read Mark's gospel, they must have put two and two together and then come to this astounding idea that Jesus was able to predict the future. Of course, he was. And then when it comes to the Last Supper, of course, the Last Supper became a regular practice of the church. And so Mark here has a record for the early church to let them know. So this is how this all came to be. This is how it all started. But in this final story, the story that we're going to look at as we wrap up our series, that's shared by Peter to Mark again, I got to tell you, it seems to have, at face value, no utility, no real big purpose. And yet for us, it may be the most important part of the whole gospel. Now as we prepare for communion together with the last part of our series, what I want us to do is to go back to that Passover feast as we enter the story. And so after Jesus gives the bread and the cup, look at what he says. In Mark chapter 14, verse 27, "You will all fall away," Jesus told them, "for it is written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered." Now, where was that written? In Zechariah 13, verse 7, Jesus' disciples were Jewish men who knew the prophets, might have known that prophecy. But then Jesus says this, "But after I have risen," Jesus calls his shot, "I will go ahead of you into Galilee." And notice what Peter does. Peter declared, "Even if all fall away, I will not." So you can imagine Peter just surveying the room, Peter just looking around at the other 11 guys, kind of sizing them up and just going, wimpy, weak, soft, weird, inconsistent. He's just kind of just rating, and he's like, okay, all right, okay, so here's how it is, Jesus, here's how it is that, yeah, these guys, you know what, they might fall away, but not me, not me. And then Jesus says this, "Truly I tell you," Jesus answered, "today, yes, tonight, before the cock crows twice, you yourself will disown me 3 times. But Peter insisted emphatically, "Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you." And all the others said the same. But when Jesus, just a few hours after he was arrested, Mark 14, verse 50 tells us that everyone deserted him and fled. Which was understandable. Because, to these guys, it was over. When Jesus was arrested, he shows no force. He puts up no fight. And to them, it must have been so confusing. So confusing because you see, the disciples saw Jesus powerfully do things like heal the lame and walk on water and multiply loaves and fish. But when the soldiers came to take him, he just goes along with it. So it was clear to everyone that Jesus was no king and that there would be no kingdom. And it was just obvious that God was not near. So Jesus was led away to be tried before the religious tribunal, the Sanhedrin it was called, who condemns Jesus to death, and the guards begin to beat him. And what comes next? What comes next is a part of the story that none of us would ever put on our social media feed. We'd never do it. And yet we're trusting Peter shared the story again and again, impressing upon Mark that he need to write down everything, that it would need to be included. So while Jesus is being tried by the Sanhedrin and then beaten, meanwhile, in Mark chapter 14, verse 66, it says, "While Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came by. When she saw Peter warming himself," okay, we're assuming here that out in that courtyard, as was the custom, is that there would be like a big, like a ring, a fire ring, and that there would be a fire and people would warm themselves there in the evening. While he's warming himself, she looked closely at him. "You also were with that Nazarene Jesus," she said. Okay, so now I want you to imagine Peter with his young friend, John Mark, because John Mark might have been 10 years younger than him, maybe even 20 years younger than him. And then he's telling him the story again and recounting the story again. And Peter's just saying, hey, Mark, so there's this little girl, and she came to me, and she stuck her finger in my face, and she said, "You were with that Nazarene guy, but Mark, here's what I did," verse 68, but I denied it. "I don't understand what you're talking about," I said, and then went to the entrance to see Mark. I tried to ditch her. The fire was there. It was bright. She could see me. She could see my face. And so I decided I needed to get to the place in the courtyard that was a little bit darker where no one would notice me. So I moved to the entrance. But when the servant girl, Mark, when the servant girl saw me there, she said again to those standing around them, this fellow's one of them. And you know what I said, Mark? He says, again, I denied it. Yeah, Mark. Go ahead and write it down. I denied him again. Which the whole ruckus, the whole commotion was beginning to bring some attention to me from some others. So after a little while, those standing near said to me, surely you're one of them, for you're a Galilean. Oh yeah, Mark, you know that accent I have? You know that northern accent that I have? You know, you're from the south. You're from, Alexandria in Egypt because, but us north, we kind of have that twangy accent. They picked up in that accent. They were on my scent. They began to sniff me out. And so Mark, here's what I did next. I began to call down curses. Now remember, Mark, I'm a fisherman, right? I can cuss like the best of them, and I was cussing away. And I swore to them, I don't know this man that you're talking about. And Mark, remember, I'm the one who testified that Jesus was the Messiah. Remember that back in Caesarea Philippi? Remember me telling you about that? Yeah, that was me. And now I say I don't even know him. And then Mark, I remember it like it was yesterday. Immediately, the cock crowed the second time. Then I remembered the Lord Jesus had spoken to me before the cock crows twice. You will disown me 3 times. And Mark, I broke down and I wept. Now, can you identify in your life the biggest regret you ever had? Can you think of it? Can you think of, or this, can you think of in your life the biggest embarrassing moment that you've ever had? And let's go ahead and now move a layer deeper. Can you think in your life about the thing that has created the most shame? I believe that this would be Peter's most shameful moment in his life. So why does Peter retell the story to Mark? I mean, you look at Peter and he is just broken. I mean, he's far, far, far from looking like he's got it all together. Instead, he's fallen apart at the seams. Notice that this story that Peter insists Mark includes has nothing to do with proving that Jesus is the Messiah, like the stories that Peter told Mark about the miracles and about the teachings and about the fulfilled Old Testament prophecies, none of that. So it brings us back to our question. The question, why is what's in the Bible in the Bible? Why is this story here? Well, maybe Peter told this story for us. Maybe he told it for me and for you. Maybe he told the story for you during the times where you just want to look so all put together. Well, on the inside, everything's fallen apart. Maybe he told the story for you when you tried and you failed. Maybe he told the story for you when you talked a really big game that you could not deliver and that you were so ripped up about it. Maybe he told the story for you, for all of you who have blown it and then have felt so ashamed afterwards and feeling so alone in it. He would tell the story to you because he would want you to know that you're not far. That you're not far. No matter your biggest failure, no matter what you've done, is that you're not far from God and his kingdom. And his kingdom that changes everything for the better. So from here, chances are you know how the story continues. That night breaks into the morning. The next day, Jesus was tried by the Roman Emperor Pontius Pilate on that Friday morning, and he was led to a hill called Golgotha, which is known as the place of the skull. And in Mark chapter 15, verse 24, it's recorded, and they crucified him. Now, no details were given because none were needed. You see, back in those days, everyone reading this had seen a crucifixion. Because they were very public things, and they happened usually on the roadways where people would would be traveling and they would see what the Romans had done. And they wouldn't crucify people generally up high, like you think like a telephone pole, but it was usually crucifying them at eye level so that there would be this visual shock to see the torture that was taking place, where the person that was crucified was trying desperately to catch a breath. Because as this method played out in your physiology as a person that's crucified is trying to use all their muscles in their legs to be able to push up on the nail that was driven into their feet, or to push through the nails that were driven into their ribs so that they could get upright to catch a breath and then slump down. I said, well, you can imagine what happens is after a while your muscles just give way. They fatigue or they rip. You can imagine that if a person doesn't bleed to death by that point in time, is that they end up suffocating because they just can't get up anymore. And people, all of Mark's readers had seen that happen. They would have known the sight of that horror, and they would have known the smell of it. And after 6 hours hanging there, Jesus breathes his last. And it would have been such a dark story if it were to end there. I mean, how would you even make sense of it all? But years later, is it that Peter writes down another thing, and he writes to a group of persecuted followers of Jesus throughout the Roman Empire that are trying to bear up under the madness of Nero's reign, and he writes presumably without the help of Mark this time. In 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 24, he says this. He says about Jesus, he himself bore our sins in his body on the cross so that we might die to sins and live for righteousness. And then Peter, he quotes the prophet Isaiah in Isaiah 53, for by his wounds you have been healed. He says, guys, what I saw, what Jesus did, it was for our healing. As for our healing, is that he took all of the weight of our sin on himself. He ransomed his life for our life. And healing? Oh, healing is coming. Healing's coming. A victory? Oh, it's coming. It's coming. Easter, it's coming. As we told you, is that we continue on to the climax of the story next weekend. As we're so excited to invite all of our guests, our friends and family, and anyone that will respond to our invitation to come as we celebrate Easter together. We're going to celebrate, but for now, is that what we want to do is that we want to remember the cross. And we're going to do that by what some church traditions call the Eucharist and others call the Lord's Supper, but what we call communion. And so I would like the band to come and join me on the stage because they're going to lead us in a time of communion. And so this time is a time for remembering what Jesus did on the cross. And that we know, as we've shared with you, is that on that Passover meal is that Jesus used the bread and the cup of the Passover meal and kind of used them in a way that the disciples had never heard of before, is that Jesus took the bread that was there and he broke it and he said, this bread is my body, it's broken for you. And then he took a cup and he said, guys, this cup is my blood. This cup is the new covenant of my blood. It'll be shed for you for the forgiveness and the remission of your sins. And if that was confusing to them, is that the next day as Jesus hung on the cross, is that it all happened in real time. As Jesus' body was broken on the cross. And on that cross, Jesus' blood flowed down. And that we're here to remember that through communion. Because you see, communion is this really important spiritual practice. It's never done in isolation. It's always done together as a community, as a body. And here we are today, celebrating it together. And I know for me, it's an important spiritual practice for me because when I celebrate communion with all of us here at Terra Nova, is that it changes my focus. It causes me to stop focusing on the impossibility, like how in the world could God ever take care of my regrets and my embarrassment and my shame? How could he ever wipe those things away? All the mistakes that I've made, is that I get my focus off of that and I get my focus on the God who does the impossible. And so you see, communion is remembering the price that God paid to draw me and you near. And remembering is an action that brings the power of Jesus into our lives. And so here's what we're going to do. The band is going to lead us in a song, and we're going to sing for a while, and then when you just feel it's time, what I would invite you to do is to move to any of the four corners of the room here, and you'll find some tables. And on those tables, you'll find some communion elements. And we've got these communion elements set up in a couple of different ways, and that you can choose which way that you want to express communion with. Is that we have the sealed cups, that's one way, and then we have the bread that are cut off in pieces that you can dip into the cup. And so you can just go ahead and express communion at the tables in whichever way it is that you would like to do. And we're going to celebrate communion together today. And so I'd like you to go ahead and stand with me now, and let's join the band, let's sing together, let's celebrate the bread and the cup.
Caught up in your splendor, you invite me in, and so I will surrender. For you have always been what I was looking for. So let me be found lost in you, lost in you. Let my heart rest in what is true, in what is true. Let your love reign over everything I say and do. Let me be found, let me be found, lost in you. I find within your power to restore me. You have always been my shelter from the storm. So let me be found lost in you, lost in you. Let my heart rest in what is true, in what is true. Let your love reign over everything I say and do. Let me be found, let me be found, lost in you. 'Cause only you can satisfy this heart of mine, this heart of mine. Only you can satisfy me. Only you can satisfy this heart of mine, this heart of mine. Only you can satisfy me. Only you can satisfy this heart of mine, this heart of mine. Only you can satisfy me. Only you can satisfy this heart of mine, this heart of mine. Only you can satisfy me. So let me be found, lost in you, lost in you. Let my heart rest. What is true? What is true? Let your love reign over everything I say and do. Let me be found, lost in you, lost in you. 'Cause only you can satisfy this heart of mine, this heart of mine. Only you can satisfy me. Only you can satisfy this heart of mine, this heart of mine. Only you can satisfy me.
Dear, rewrite this letter for which you have been accepted to the... Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
Danielle, you gotta see this. Look at this.
Come here, come here, come here.
Okay. How have you not seen that yet?
Congratulations. Thank you. Start from beginning. Tell us everything. Okay, so
I can't believe it.
What is it?
You gotta be kidding me. That's great. Hey, come here. You gotta listen to the story.
I have something to show you.
Oh my goodness! Dad!
That is great.
we're getting this tonight.
Who are we gonna tell first?
We gotta tell our moms. Your mom or my mom.
Peter! John! Come see this! The tomb! It's empty!
Really is true, isn't it? Good news, whatever it is, a great restaurant, that show you're binge watching right now, a movie that your friend hasn't seen and you can't believe they haven't seen that movie, something amazing that just happened maybe to you or to a family member. And the first thing we think of is like, we got to share this. Like, I can't hold this to myself. And that's why I think what we're doing right now is such a perfect way to connect this series to Easter, because this series has all been about a very simple message that Mark started to communicate from the very beginning of his story. The time has come. The wait is over. The kingdom of God is right here. So unlearn everything you thought you knew about your life and turn and embrace this good news. And once you do, the first thing that we then turn to do is like, who do I share this with? And so as we've got Easter coming up this next weekend, as you're heading out, we want to give you just the like no excuse option to maybe take this into your week and see how doors or opportunities might open. Our guest services have invites bundled in groups of 3, and then there's an Easter egg invite too, and they're just going to be handing them to you on the way out. So grab one, grab a couple. There's a table with more. If you some of you actually have more than 3 friends, not many of you, but I know a couple of you do, but I don't. So if you're lucky, and so grab a few of those, and then let's just go into our week saying, okay, God, good news is meant to be shared. How can I share this? Who do you want me to share this with? While you're walking out and grabbing those from our guest services team, you'll also notice they're holding a basket. And that basket is for your Connect card. So again, if you're our guest, thank you so much for spending part of your week in Palm Sunday week with us. We could not be more grateful. I hope you grabbed one of these and started filling it out. We'd love to know who you are. And if you've been around forever, we'd love to know who you are too. So just take these, drop those in the offering basket. You can drop these Easter team flyers in that basket as well. And of course, you can drop your offering envelopes in that basket too. And I was just thinking over the course of these past few years how generous this community has been, and now times have gotten really tight and gas prices are through the roof, and really every price is through the roof, and some of us have felt that tightness. And I just feel like in times when finances get tighter, generosity is actually even that much more meaningful. And of course, we're always thinking, hey, if it's tight for us, it's tighter for other people around the world, and we still have more than most, and so we want to be generous with what God's given us. And so just so grateful for the generosity of this community, even in a season where it starts to hurt a little bit to be so. So drop those offering envelopes in there as you're heading out. You can also give online and on our app, and you can set up recurring giving, as most of you or many of you have. And then, hey, next weekend, beginning Thursday with Maundy Thursday, we're going to be here serving, having fun, eating pizza. And then the Good Friday experience, if you can find your way here between noon and 2, every half hour, this experience that we have in this room. And then, of course, beginning Saturday with the egg hunt's going to be super fun, and 4 services next weekend. Can't wait to meet your friends and who you bring and your family members. And then last but not least, tomorrow at my place, baptisms, and a bunch of people are getting baptized. So that's exciting too, if you can make it there. Hey, God bless you guys. Happy Palm Sunday weekend, and we will see you back on Thursday and then for Easter weekend. Can't wait. God bless you. Have a great week.